This is Mike Strickler. We're going to start at probably 2:01, 2:02. Just waiting for everybody to get on. So we'll wait a couple minutes and then we'll start the presentation. Thank you. Okay, this is Mike Strickler, FYSA Director of Coaching and Player Development. We're going to kind of go through this, and then if you have any questions, we'll kind of deal with those as they come. But basically, what we have here is we have our team. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, this is our team. I'm Mike Strickler, Director of Coaching. Derek Cullen, who's our VP of Player Development. And then we have Mark Godwin, the Assistant Director of Coaching Recreation, and he'll be on the call today as well. And then these are the guys who do most of the work. Mike Parsons, the Assistant Director of Coaching, works in the Coaching Ed Department. Andrew Simpson, who deals with a lot of different elements, but his main focus is on coaching education. And Ziggy Nagel, he's our ODP Program Assistant. Now, as we go through this is our agenda: the coaching education, the Olympic development program, the recreation, and the club player development. One of the things we'll ask you is if you have any questions as we go through this, and we'll basically go through the coaching ed, see if there's any questions, Olympic development program, see if there's any questions. Please go on the chat feature and type in your question. Andrew will give me those questions and we'll kind of deal with those as we get to them. Okay, so let's move on. This is a coaching education piece. We're looking at the grassroots license, the D license, the C license, and the United Soccer Coaches diplomas. Okay, so as we go through that, we're looking at the grassroots license. So if you want to go through a grassroots license, it's $25 no matter which one you do. There's also in-person courses. So the 4v4 is $50, the 7v7, 9v9, 11v11 is $75. Realize with those sessions, $25 is going back to the federation. Okay. Now, as we move on, this is kind of how we're holding our courses right now in sort of a blending phase. Okay, we'll talk about that with the D license and we'll talk about that with the C license. The first piece, the 2-hour classroom piece, is now virtual. And it's usually 2 to 7 days before the course starts. All right, so basically if I have a 11v11 session, we'll do the Thursday night classroom lecture. That'll be virtually. And then we will do the field portion either on Saturday or Sunday. Now, if we're going to do 2 courses, like let's say we're doing a 7v7 and 11v11, we'll still have to do a 7v7 classroom lecture and an 11v11 classroom lecture. So for example, we're doing a course here in Auburndale. We'll do a 7v7 on Wednesday, and we'll do an 11v11 on Thursday. And then we'll have a 2 to 3 hour field session. Will be in person. Okay. And basically, if it's one session, it'll be 2 hours. If it's two sessions, it'll be 3 hours. We just kind of added on to the classroom session or to the field session when we do two at once. So the COVID-19 policies will be in effect. So we will take your temperature. We'll do a COVID-19 questions. We'll do a waiver form. And we'll also clean your ball for you. Okay, and then the coaches will actually be the players now. So we will not use any youth players. The coaches will now play instead of the youth players. And again, as the coaches are playing, they'll have to either wear a mask or not wear a mask. That's up to them. But if you're off, if you're not playing, you need to be wearing a mask, and you need to be making sure you're socially distanced. Okay, so this is basically how we're running the grassroots license. We'll see when U.S. Soccer goes back to the usual grassroots license, where we'll do 1 hour and then 1 hour in the classroom, 2 hours on the field, and then 1 hour back in the classroom. That's typically how we're doing it, but we're not doing it here. Okay, we'll wait till U.S. Soccer changes how we're handling those sessions. Then we have the D license course, which typically takes 3-day weekends. There's a developmental period in between the sessions, between the first and the second weekends. And the developmental period is where the coaches will be given various assignments and be asked to accomplish them. So it's important that those coaches who come to those classes either bring a laptop or a tablet to complete the course. It's very, very difficult if they're trying to do it on their phone. It's harder if they've got a computer at home, but they don't have one there. So I think a laptop or a tablet makes the course much easier. The D license will cover all 4 models, and some of the new items include formations and skill acquisition. Now, this is when we don't have a pandemic. But if we do have a pandemic, this is how we're running the D license now. Okay, so in the beginning of October, basically till the end of 2020, the in-person field sessions will be completed. I'm sorry, the classroom courses will be completed from October through the end of the year. Okay, with the in-person field sessions being completed January through March of 2021. So basically, they think hopefully that the pandemic, takes a downturn in January. We don't know that, but I know the field sessions we can do that. Now, obviously, with the D license, there'll be a lot more field sessions, and so we'll hold the webinars over a 10 to 12 week period, and it'll be something that you'll be able to do, and then be able to work on your either the classroom sessions that we're looking at, or the developmental period sessions there. Okay, and then we'll, when U.S. Soccer gets us those updates, and that's again why we're not starting till October, is we're not getting that information from U.S. Soccer till September. So typically we've done the classroom piece, we've done the developmental period, and then we'll come back and we'll do a weekend on the field with no youth players again. The coaches will now play instead of age group players. So that's kind of where we're looking at. Okay, so be prepared to play if you're a coach. Again, the coaches can or cannot wear a mask while they're playing on that. So we have that. So the U.S. Soccer will give us info. It's when we can go back to the original setup, which is the slide I just did. Okay, the C license. Again, Florida will hold 3 C licenses in Florida. We'll hold 1 in Jacksonville, which will be starting pretty soon. Then we'll have Palm Beach and Bradenton. Okay, U.S. Soccer is currently holding the courses virtually until the end of 2020. So again, we're looking at the course in Jacksonville. Will we be allowed to do the November piece? Probably not. So again, we may have to delay that date a little bit. So we have the field sessions, the presentations were held after the beginning of 2021 for the second meeting. In FYSA 2021, we will hold 3 licenses again in 2021. Now, if you're interested in holding one of the courses, because these courses in Jacksonville, Palm Beach, and Bradenton are basically from 2020 to 2021. But if you've got a course you want to put on and you see where we can put it, we need to know where you're going to hold the course, how much in terms of classroom space, and then we'll look at hotels and stuff by your area. But please reach out to Andrew Simpson if you have interest in hosting one of those C licenses for 2021. Okay, we have the United Soccer Coaches diplomas. We have the 4v4, the 7v7, the 9v9, the 11v11. Those are basically like the old coaching modules we did. In fact, it ties in nicely to the National Youth License, which we have further down on the list. Okay, as we go through that, one of the things we'll look at is what's the cost? Well, the 4v4 is $30. The 7v7, 9v9, 11v11 are $40. The goalkeeping license is $50 to $100. So the grassroots level 1 is $50, and then we go up to level 3, and that's $100. Okay, the National Youth License typically is around $600, and then we talk about the special topics, which we'll kind of go through in some of the other parts of the lecture. Okay, so that's basically the United Soccer Coaches. We have not done any United Soccer Coaches because we basically signed the document with United Soccer Coaches. I want to keep saying NSCA, but it's not. It's United Soccer Coaches. We signed that the end of January, and then in March we had the pandemic hit. So we haven't run any of these courses yet. But if you're interested in them, one of the things you need to realize is when you're talking about the U.S. Soccer pathway, that's a different pathway than the United Soccer Coaches. Okay, so you can't take some of these modules and have it apply to the U.S. Soccer. It doesn't work that way. But they are some different, some similar courses, and they are a little bit cheaper, especially with the 7v7 through the 11v11s. Okay. Okay, so see now we're going to move into the Olympic Development Program. Okay, and these are the things we'll look at. We'll look at the trials, the pool, the team events, the MLS ODP partnership, the international trip Benfica, which is in Portugal. We've got the pro and national team players for just this year. We got the Region 3 teams for just this year. So we'll kind of go through that as we go through the lecture. So as I'm looking at this is our ODP trials. Now, one of the things we need to make sure of is we're still going to do the COVID-19 testing as we go through this. So just as I said for the coaching ed, which we'll make sure that the balls are cleaned, the goals are cleaned. We'll do a COVID test and take their temperature. We'll also make sure they have wear a mask and socially distanced. When they're playing, they don't have to wear a mask, but when they're off the field, they have to wear a mask and they have to be socially distanced. And really, we haven't had a lot of problems with that. We've had some issues with the players saying, well, I'm young, I don't have to worry about this, and they're getting close, and we have to say, no, get your mask on and get spread out again. So that's going to be something we're going to deal with. Okay. So we have the trials set up. We continue to plan on having those trials. We'll see where the pandemic goes to see if they make us get out of this. But I think we will move forward with this, but making sure we're covering the COVID-19 type questions. Okay. The other piece to this is our pool, team training, and event dates. Notice we don't have many events. So I've got an event here in Norco, California. and then we've got an event here in Lake Myrtle. Okay, we don't have any other events, and the reason why is that we don't have a way to schedule those events yet because of the pandemic. So that's kind of where we're at with this. We'll still have the pool trainings. We'll still have the team trainings. We'll kind of have to look at the number of players that we put in the pools. And if we have two separate groups, we may have to separate them a little bit. So again, in terms of how we set this up, we really haven't looked at the pool training. We've looked more at the trials. But as we look at the pool and the team training, we'll have to kind of decide how we're going to set that up. But that's not till the end of October, and we've got some other stuff we've got to look at to make sure that we're ready to move with that. Okay, so these are the team training events. The next thing is we have this is something that's new, and this is something that U.S. Youth has worked with the MLS for almost 2.5 years. And basically it's a partnership where the MLS is going to put some money into ODP. And really the biggest issue with ODP is we have a lot of coaches. We have probably 60 coaches in Florida that are working with ODP. And to be real honest, they're doing it for a very, actually a minimal wage to no wage. So they're coming out, they're volunteering their time for this. So we're going to be able to put together a national scouting network. Okay, so good full collaboration between the national and the state association. So the MLS and the state association will be able to work together. When they go to events, it's not going to cost them anything. So if a player goes to a regional event, like the interregionals that are happening in Champions Gate this year, which is just up the road, it's not costing them anything to come into that event. So all they got to do is get there. So really the big emphasis is on the states for collecting some of the money. So that's why we're not passing anything up. We're just not getting anything from the region yet. So basically we're looking at it as, can they come into the events? Can they have a high level of competition? So we look at the MLS, they have the GA programs. We already had an event set up for October and they've canceled that. So that's kind of where we're looking at, is we still have to deal with the pandemic as we're looking at this whole process, because we're not sure how many GA events we can go to, how many events we can even send our players to. So that's kind of where we're at with it right now. Again, the opportunity to be scouted for future regional and national events and scheduling tailored for the college recruiting. It's interesting. I've talked to the Inter Miami and the Orlando United guy, and it's kind of interesting that, there's lots of things that we talked about we can do, but we have to wait till COVID-19 goes away. So basically, they've got their plans, we've got our plans, and as soon as we can get together, we can start to do that. And we'll talk about that with the international group after this. Okay, so basically we have something with ODP and MLS, and we'll hope that will be something that can expand and make our program even better. The other piece to this is we have an international group that we're working with. We're working with Benfica, Portugal. So if you go and look up Benfica, it's interesting. You look at their setting and you look at how they're deal with their academy players, and they're expanding that right now. So we're talking that, they can probably bring in, 200, 300 players. And now can they expand that to maybe 600 players? So basically what we're going to do is we're going to have our players either go over there or have some of the Portugal players come over here. The same thing with our coaches. Our coaches are going to go over there. We actually had a trip planned for November coming up this year, and we decided we were going to cancel that because of the pandemic. But as soon as that's able, we can kind of do that. We've got a first event for the ODP players in March. We'll see if that happens. I got on the phone with them and we said, well, we'll set it up and we'll see how it goes. But again, that's kind of where we're at with planning this. It'll be good. It'll be good to have a partnership with an international group and be able to take either individual ODP players or full teams of ODP players over there and let them experience their coaches. Because again, we're not doing this for our development of our players. We're giving them to their coaches and let them working with our players over that period of time. So it's not like we're going over there and touring. We're going over there basically to kind of see a little bit of that area, but ideally is to have them train with the Portuguese players and have them be able to sit with the Portuguese players and see what they have to go through to make it. So that's what we're kind of do with the international trips for coaches and players. And I think one of the things that I look at here is this is for the South region players. So this is what we have recommended for the interregionals at Omni, okay, in Champions Gate. So most of these players, since they're taking 2 teams from each age group, most of these players will be able to attend that event. So when I'm talking 18, we may have 15 girls in the 03s, 04s. We may have, 12 boys from the 05 age group. So we're going to have a big group of players there working with the region, playing against other teams from other parts of the country. So that's coming up in November. We'll see if it happens. But again, that's the sort of level you need to realize with our ODP program, that we're number 1 in the South without question, and probably in the top 4 in the country. And it's interesting, when we went back and we talked about the team events, we're going to California. The reason we're going to California is we want to go play some teams that will challenge us. So it'll be good for us to make that trip. Now we have California coming to us in June, with South Texas, Georgia, North Carolina coming down as well. But I think that's kind of what we're looking at with our ODP program is where we need to go and play the teams that we can play. We can go up and play some teams in Alabama and Mississippi, and that's okay. We can do that, but that doesn't challenge our players. So we need to go somewhere where we can challenge our players. So as we move on, we talk about the national teams. And this is the national team players. These are 2 national team players that we have. We have Josie Altidore and we have Morgan Bryant. Josie Altidore, we ended up playing his club team, Boca Juniors, in Cocoa. And it was real interesting. Our state team ended up beating their team like 4-0. And that was a team that nobody touched. But our state team did very well with them. But it's interesting, a lot of them came up and talked to me after the session going, we want to try out for ODP. We want to do this. And I'm like, okay. So I sent them information. Unfortunately, Josie was brought up to the national team at that point, but we had other players from that team that came on as well. Okay, Morgan Bryant actually is from St. Simon, Georgia, which is right on the coast of Georgia from Florida. So she ended up playing for a team in Jacksonville. So it's interesting that, she played a lot of different sports, as well as Josie played a lot of different sports. So we invited her for an event and she says, well, unfortunately, I've got a basketball game that day. So it's interesting how these players play a lot of different sports and not just one. Okay. So as we go through and do that, if we wanted to spend a couple hours on this, we could talk just about our national team players from the time I started here, and that's back in the late 90s. So I think as we kind of look at this, we've never gone back and looked at that, but we could probably spend 2 hours looking at that. But these are the players that are on the national teams right now. Okay, and these are the women's national team. Ashlyn Harris came over from Space Coast. And then we have Havana Salon from Jacksonville area. So these are the players. These are the players on the national team. These are the pro players. And then the next group, these are the women's youth national team in just this past year. These are players that have been brought into various events. And then we got the men's national team. We have Jonathan Lewis, Josie Altador. Those are our men's national team players right now, and the other players are playing for pro teams. And then we've got the national youth teams right here. Okay, so we do have a lot of pro players. We do have a lot of players, and believe me, there's a lot of players playing overseas that we don't even know about. But it is something that we take great pride in, and I think it's important that as we're looking at this, it's our job to put players to the next level, whether the next level is pro or the next level is for the national team. We feel that that's an important part. And if there's a player that plays with us and now plays with the national team or plays with the pro team, we think that that's a great success. So now we get to the FYSA Introduction to Soccer, and I'll let Mark Godwin go through that with you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. So just quickly, the Introduction to Soccer program is specifically geared at the recreational side of things. And one of the things I've tried to do is each year we created a book last year, which was an activity guide to help the volunteer coaches understand what they can and can't do with youth soccer players, especially at the youngest ages. So we're looking to give our members as many benefits as we possibly can. And the Introduction to the Soccer program is one of those as well. So this is something that's really geared towards, parents as well as players, the new incoming players at the youngest age groups, but you can still use this program right the way through to under 8s. It's not something that is just isolating brand new players. It's also a great way to introduce parents to coaching. One of the things that I know from my club days was always a struggle with my recreational program was trying to get those parents to volunteer, step up to the plate and become coaches. We require those on a regular basis, and each year it was a struggle as the season was coming up to find coaches for the teams, and sometimes we were talking about huge numbers. When I implemented this program at my club, I found that parents started to volunteer because they suddenly realized how easy it can be. The other thing is we want to change our soccer culture. If you've done some of the grassroots courses, you'll hear about soccer culture all the time, but we need to implement change. We've got to find some way to get more soccer out there to our recreational players. So how are we going to implement that change? Well, if we actually break it down, on average, a recreational player only plays about 1 to 2 hours a week. That's it. So we need to be able to change that. So the idea of this program is to bring the parents together with the players, either at the start of the season on the opening day or pre-season, and help get them to understand how to work in their own front or backyard with their own child. Certainly right now with the situation, of COVID and the pandemic really impacting what we do, there's definitely been a lot more quality family time, certainly in my household. Sometimes I'm pulling my hair out with my kids around me all the time, but it's been good fun. And if we can continue that sort of fun, enjoyable environment, it leads to more quality family time as well. These days, I look at my 14-year-old daughter. I have to get on her calendar just to see if we can get something done. So it's tough for kids out there. But if we can start this off at the youngest age groups, great, because we want to see positive parenting out there. Here's one of the cartoons that we use on the National Youth License, but you can see how parental rage starts at those early ages. And, it's nothing new to us as coaches. We see parents getting out of hand on the sideline. Part of this program is about parent education. So we want new incoming players to have a good experience, but to get those parents to realize what the experience of soccer is all about, because we still have a lot that never got to participate in soccer when they were growing up. So they are new to the sport completely. things are changing. If you look back 20 years ago, probably 90% of parents had never participated in soccer. But today, that number's changed, but we still have a fair amount that still haven't experienced it. I'm not going to single them out. The bottom line is those seasoned pro parents who've probably had a child already come through a soccer program, this can really assist them as well. It's a great way to give them a good foundation on how to work in a fun environment with their own child. The program is about trying to get the parents to do a little bit of coaching. This is where we're going to see the real change. When we really can't have as much impact as we want with our players weekly, we're going to have to rely on our parents to do a little bit of it for us. So if we can get them to understand how to do it correctly, that's going to go a long way for player development. And that's what we need. Outside of the club, if we don't get that done, our clubs aren't going to grow. So whatever we can do to help with that growth will go a long, long way. There's a parent education piece, as I mentioned, and part of it is how to become a fan of the game. Because some of those parents who've never experienced it bring some of the bad elements from other sports into our sport. So how do we teach them to become a true fan of soccer? And as I say, this program has a little bit on that to help them be guided through this process. There's also about a little piece about correct soccer equipment. How many times have you as coaches seen kids playing at the youngest ages with the wrong size soccer ball, or cleats that are a size or two too big? It's one of those things that I hear a lot of, that the parents will buy a pair of shoes or a pair of cleats, in this case, 2 sizes too big, because they know they're going to grow into it. Well, that's not very good for a young soccer player. There's going to be movement of their foot inside those cleats, which causes blisters. And of course, that's not a great experience for our players. So it helps educate them on that. How does the program work? Well, players come in with their parents and they meet their new recreational soccer coach, as well as the club officials. This is a great time for everybody to interact to the club and give your club an identity. So as I said, you can do it on the opening day of the season or run it a couple of weeks as a pre-season event. Some of the things that I did at my club, we actually handed out uniforms on the same day. That way you're going to get a good catchment of parents and players come in. Part 2 of this is the players and the volunteer coaches that you have go and work with a professional coaching staff, whether it's yours at the club, and this is one of the reasons why we've done this program. It could be us from FYSA come out and conduct it, but we've designed the curriculum and we're going to share it with you guys if you want it, because we want to give you this as part of your member benefits of being part of FYSA. So those people, the players and those volunteer coaches, will go off with the staff and work on fun soccer-related activities. The parents, on the other hand, will stay with the lead instructor. They're going to work on a specific technique, whether it's kicking the ball or dribbling or anything like that. Within the curriculum, I've put down the 2 simple ones because these are under 6s, dribbling and kicking. But if you want to, you can add more components to this. It's there for you to adapt to suit your needs as a club. And then eventually, after a few minutes, we're going to bring the 2 groups together and have the parents interact with their own child and coach them, whereas the staff will go round and try and enhance that and give them a few pointers on how to do this. The players will then go back out, play some more fun activities with the volunteer coaches and the staff, and the parents will be educated on how to be a true soccer fan and the right equipment and so forth. And then we finish off with a game. The whole thing takes about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes if you want. And during the game situation, we teach them how to be a better fan in that environment. Again, usually that's where we see a lot of the problems, and it's hopefully will go a long way if we can educate them to help retain some of our referees in the game, because we all know that we're losing referees, especially young referees, on a continuous basis. And if we can retain those, it's going to be a lot better for our future. So the bonus, as I mentioned, we get parents volunteering to coach. I found this was a hugely successful program for my club, as parents suddenly realize it's not that difficult to coach their own child, especially in a sport that they never actually participated in. It really isn't that tough. So hopefully we'll start to see that happen at your club, and you won't have as much of an issue trying to get volunteers to step up to the plate. The basis of the curriculum. Well, if you've been around as long as you know that, there's not too much new material out there. And a lot of the stuff that we work on here is based off of the old National Youth License, which was a US soccer license. They handed it back to US Youth Soccer a few years back. It became the National Youth Coaching Course, and now is part of the United Soccer Coaches Education Program as the National Youth Diploma. If you've been through this particular course, I think most of you will agree it's one of the best courses that you've probably ever taken. For me, I did the old FA courses back in England, the FA prelim, and then took my full badge a few years later, and then came over to the United States and went through the whole US soccer coaching pathway. Out of all the courses I've done, this was probably the one that I got the most out of. It gave me an understanding of how kids think, and that's important when you're working with young players, because again, when you're coaching that youngest age group, understanding what 6 and unders look like on the soccer field, it's pretty much this. It is that amoeba of players going around, and there is nothing wrong with that. There is player engagement throughout. There's only one soccer ball on the field, and although they're playing 4v4, we all know it's 1 versus 7. So we have to understand that, and getting parents to understand this as well will help them become a better fan of the sport. How many of you have said spread out to an under 16? Does it happen? Well, if you've managed to get that to happen, you're a better coach than I. So what's important to know about the program? So the curriculum's been designed. It's not a new one. I've had this for many years, and it's changed over time. And we have to evolve and adapt to the new surroundings. And I figured this would be the perfect time to unveil this, having gone through the COVID situation and hopefully returning to play soon. So what a great way to have more impact with our parents and players working on the sport we all love. As I mentioned, if you want, we have a staff of coaches that we can come out there and conduct this program for your club. There obviously will be a fee involved with that, or you can utilize your FYSA bucks. But we wanted to make sure that we designed it so that you could use it. So you don't need us. We've designed that program so if you want to implement this program on your own, all you got to do is ask for it, and we will send it to you, and you can put it out there for yourselves. And again, I'm open for the program to evolve. So if you have any suggestions, don't hesitate to ask me. We can add things to it as we continue down the highway. It's a great way to give your club an identity. Certainly from that first impact, a lot of times they don't know who the people are at the club. They don't know what goes on at the club. So you could actually have part of this program as an introduction to your club, to give the parents an identity of what the program is all about and what your club is all about. So when you get your recreational groups together and you get your volunteers together, this is what you get, isn't it? A whole plethora of different coaches from different backgrounds, from possibly the military, as we see there, the first one, maybe someone from a professional or played football at some point in time. Some of you might have coaches that actually participated in the sport. And again, there's going to be a lot of business people out there as well. And there's always going to be a few of those that, hey, they were available, or they're the ones that we picked up the phone and said, hey, we don't have a coach for your kids' team. You're it, and you put the phone down before they can say anything. But we've got to make sure we try in some way to get them all on the same page, working on the right methods going forward to make that foundation so much better for our clubs and grow our programs for the future. So can we get them working on the right thing? Well, hopefully we can always avoid the 3 L's, the no lines, laps, or lectures. But today I still go round after I've preached this for many years, and I know some of you who've been on instructional staff and certainly within your own club environments have preached this as well. The no lines, no laps, no lectures. But we still see it happening, because that's how coaches get it. They get it from the books, and they paint the true picture that they see in the books. So in this one, we got those kids dribbling around the cones, but they suddenly realized that the cones in a game are not there. They're not stationary. They play against players. The game is a fluid game. So can we get them, or give our volunteer coaches an understanding of what is reality-based, and can we train in that reality-based environment? So getting away from drills maybe and going more to an activity-based program. As I mentioned earlier with my daughter, it's tough being a kid these days. So with my 14-year-old's schedule, I have to try and get on her schedule to find some quality family time. She's so busy. There's so much more going on in her life. But can we actually get back to having a little bit more fun and playing just for fun? And that happens at home, doesn't it? You know, it's one of those things that we need that interaction. And I've got to be honest, during COVID, I've had a lot more quality time with my children in the front and backyard. So this program is all about that. Now, what I've done is, in all of the other DOC meetings, I've asked for anybody who wants a copy of the curriculum just to email me, and I will get it to them straight away. There has been a bit of a delay with the other ones because we've gone through that branding change and I've had to put all new logos on it, but it's now ready to go. And you know, if you want it, just email me, mgodwin@fysa.com. And I know Mike's going to show our contact information a little later, but just email me and I will get it to you. It's up to you. If you want it, take it and go with it. You know, if you think you got the basis of something that is already there that works on this one, that's great. This is just an aid, and it goes along with, as I mentioned, the activity guide that we put out last year, which has been very well received. Hopefully, this will as well. So it's now, you know, it's coming up to the right time. And hopefully, as we do get back out there on the soccer fields, that we can probably implement some of this pretty soon. So fingers crossed on that one. With that, I'm going to hand back over to Mike Strickler. Let me ask Andrew, is there any questions about this program in the chat feature?
No.
Nothing? All right, so email me if you want a copy of it. But Mike's going to now go through the club development tool from US Soccer.
Okay, as we go through the club development tool, one of the things we need to realize is this was put together by US Soccer and their technical staff. So this is something that, you know, they kind of presented to us. I think I was in Dallas when they kind of did this, and it's something I think that the clubs can use to help self-assess themselves. Now, again, this is something that, you know, if you got a grassroots club or a DA program, you can kind of meld what you want to do with it, and we'll look at how it's put together, and we can go from there. But again, it's a self-assessment, so you want to look at your current club structure. Staff discussions, document philosophies, development plans, all that sort of stuff should be talked about by your staff. And how do we implement the documented plans? So again, this is what we're trying to do in terms of us now looking at our club and deciding what's going to work and what's not going to work. And really, this came from a German company who came in and looked at the DA programs, and they kind of left us a little bit of the other stuff. So let me kind of look at that. So if we go to the club development tool, realize that these are all the areas: the club, the soccer, the players, the development, the talent ID, the staffing, the integration, the club environment, the evaluation, the high performance, facilities, administration, all that sort of stuff's on the document. And these are the sort of things: the player vision, the objectives, the teaching, the curriculum, the periodization in terms of that. Now, the players may have four ideas that they're looking at. And then you look at the staffing, they may have 7 or 8 items that we're looking at. Again, this is what we're trying to have us look at. If I'm at a club and I'm on a board and I've got my staff, I want to kind of look at my club and say, where does this work and where doesn't this work? So as we look at this, we can put it together in terms of the club A, B, and C. And we may have club A, B, and C and D and E. So there may be something in between the club C and the club B. But basically what we have here is these are the DA clubs and these are the grassroots clubs. and how do we look at that, and how is that something that we can improve on? So again, that's something that we need to look at the previous slide. So we go here, how can we utilize this to now go to the clubs that we have here? So again, this is something that our FYSA coaching committee had been working on for the past, about 6 months. We'd met 2 or 3 times. We were ready to bring it out, and then we had the pandemic. Okay, so one of the things that we're going to look at is kind of pilot this with those who are doing grassroots licenses that we're putting on in Florida this year, so 2020, 2021. So give them the survey, give them a survey that they look at, and then begin to do this, because really the document that we come here with, this is, I mean, there's 12 items, and there's all those different items we have to look at. So you look at facilities and fields and all that sort of stuff, and the high performance. Do you have videos? I mean, I don't know. That may not work for the Class C club. That may not work here. So maybe we need to change that a little bit. So that's why we kind of put together a survey to see what we can put in and what can't we put in the pilots, and then be able to bring it to the rest of the group as we move forward. So again, this is something we're working on right now in terms of the club development tool, and it's something that I think it will help you assess your clubs, see what your club needs to be. Because if I'm with this group and I've got the A team, I mean, is there a problem with me being in Club C, I'm a recreational club, and then eventually I'll say, well, I'll give some of my better players to Club A. Well, right now that's an issue, okay? And that may not be an issue the whole way, but if I have ODP players and they get to go to a pro team or a national team, I'm like going, go, be there. I mean, that's something that I think we can do. But now when we work with our club areas is right now our clubs, for the most part, in Florida are a bunch of different teams. Okay, how can we make that club structure so that the structure, do we have a philosophy, but really does the philosophy flow with all the teams? And do I have a 15 team? Do they have a player that would be good on the 16 team? And the coach on the 16 team wants that player, but the coach on the 15 team doesn't want to give it up. So this is kind of how we're trying to make our clubs into more of clubs, so that we can kind of be able to move players wherever we want to move them. So again, that's something that we're looking at with the developmental tool. It's not something you have to do. It's not something that we require, but it's something I think that you can kind of go back and look and see with your teams and see if it works. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at with the group. And then I just wanted to put down, these are the members on our coaching committee right now. And I think it's something that they spend a lot of time on, and we're ready to present this. It's just a matter of, okay, what time and do we do it now or do we do it later? I mean, we're probably going to do it probably this year as we move forward. But again, I don't think it's going to really impact you until you guys get your clubs back, you guys get your kids playing, and you get yourself sorted out, and then maybe we'll throw the club development tool out there. But we didn't think it was a time to throw it out there right now, so we've kind of put it back in our pocket. But soon as we get back to normal, we'll kind of bring this out again. Okay. So this is the end of the session. One of the things I want to go back to that Mark talked about is we go back to the initial piece with the meetings and the coaches, and let me get to that. Let's see, one more. Okay. So this is what Mark talked about, is being able to get in touch with us, because what you've got to realize is we have lots of information that we can pass on to you. but you have lots of information you can pass on to us. So until we get to the point where we can begin to do more of this, and again, we like to do this session at the AGM. We like to do this session where I come around and I meet with your groups and we can have good conversations at a region level. So I go to region A, they've got issues. I go to region D, they have different issues, but it makes sense for me to do that. So I think as we get out of this pandemic, hopefully I can do a little traveling and get around to see you. But for right now, we're doing this virtually. And I think it's important that we can kind of put this stuff together and kind of bring things together. But realize that we get as much coming from you as we giving to you. We've got the coaching ed, we've got the ODP, we've got the club developmental, we got Mark with the recreation stuff. We've got lots of information to give you, but there's also information you can give us so we can kind of adjust what we're doing for you. So we hope to be working with you next year in terms of moving this program together. A couple things that I wanted to bring up. We are looking for coaching ed instructors. The only problem right now is they have to go through a grassroots instructor license, and US Soccer's got that on hold. But if you got somebody who's interested in teaching those licenses, please have them email me because I can kind of put them on a list. And as soon as those instruction courses are open, I can kind of send that out and see who's involved and who can go. Because again, you can go to that instructor license. US Soccer's paying for for you to go. Okay, now how do you get there? We help pay for you to go to those licenses. Okay, so we can there's some some time frame where we can do that. Now the other piece to it is if they want to be on ODP staff. I mean, we typically have on our staff coaches with a C or above license. Okay, we have taken D licensed coaches, but realize that they're administrators. Okay, they can't coach a team yet. Okay, but if there's somebody who has a D license or looking to get a C license, we can kind of help them do that. So again, we've got the coaching ed staff, we've got the ODP staff. Anything that you can kind of help with, that would be wonderful. And anything we can do to help you, that would be great too. So if there's no questions, we'll kind of move on. Andrew, no questions? Okay, good.
Currently, no.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you coming, and hopefully next year we can meet in person and I can at least shake your hands as you come in the door. All right, so thank you and have a nice day.